going to conferences all the time is the main driver for progress in your skill set and also your relationship, and basically any professional can become a better professional by attending conferences.
It's not the standard, okay? It's a movie theater, but the visual is great and the sound is great, and I've seen a lot of room and space, and I think it's organized well.
Seeing all the people here today and they're excited about stuff, you can see the energy and the desire to learn and do new things.
And I was positively surprised about the technical depth of the sessions, and how that makes the tester part of the team.
I think developers do benefit from coming to QA conferences, just the same as testers can benefit from going to dev conferences. You've got to have a broad understanding of what's going on.
It's really inclusive. I would say it's super diverse. People are really, really open and friendly, and it's really organized.
Conferences are well worthwhile just for the ideas that they spark in people. When people come back to the office, they're full of ideas and they're all energized up.
Hi, I'm Arnika and I come from Poland. I work as a senior QA specialist at Volvo Group, and also I do a lot of stuff at Polish testing board. My topic is about change. You know how hard sometimes it is to adapt to the new ways of working, environments or tools. This is why I would like to introduce you to the change management and its approaches and techniques that can support you with all those changes.
Hello. As you may know, war never changes. On the live version of this presentation, I meant to ask you if you know where does this quote come from, maybe. If you do, you can always use Slido to answer, not ask me questions, but answer to this question. As you may also know, the things that doesn't change for some people are death and taxes. But all the other things are changing, like we are changing environment, our climate, everything is changing. But the question is, can we handle this change well? As some of you may know, Sheldon Cooper didn't handle change well, but I won't spoil you the very last episode of the Big Bang Theory. So let's go to my presentation, and what I will be talking about today is the change management. So how to approach changes, how to deal with them, how to manage them correctly to have the best of it, to gain most and to implement the changes successfully. So I know you saw the little introduction video about me, but to say a bit more, I'm also the accredited ISTQB trainer, working with the Polish testing board, coaching people, giving trainings, workshop, all the stuff. On this conference also I was giving the workshop. So 2 days ago, I also speak at many conferences, but this is my first TestCon, and on a daily basis I work on a senior QA specialist, and actually my job is kinda internal consultant, internal support. So if there is something to do about testing in a huge project, small project, and they need the support right away, they can ask me. I can join for a moment to coach some test manager that is only starting, or I can just support the very beginnings. So one of this support case, one of the question for me at my company was to join this huge project about moving everything to cloud. As you may know, it's kinda way right now and has been for a few years already to not have our own servers, our own storage space, but to have everything in cloud. And within this project, I had the first encounter with the change management, actually. So my role was to set up a testing strategy for this huge project about moving all the storage places to the cloud for the whole organization. So yeah, it's a big change. And at the very first workshop, when the project was introduced and everything was set what we will be doing in this project, so there was like first setup first setup of the team, and here there was change manager, or she was. So I asked myself and them, why do we even need change manager, right? It's obvious that we have to go to cloud. It's like everybody is doing that. So why we need someone who will manage the change? Change is certain. We have to do that. It's as Thanos, inevitable. So why to have this change manager? So at the second workshop, it was actually described to us why do we need this change manager. And the thing is that we can have all the tools, we can have techniques and our approach and strategies, but exactly the change management is to manage the people side of the change to achieve some goals. So it is process, it is a tool, it is a techniques. So it's a set of stuff, set of things that can help us to manage those change, because it's always the thing that it's always hardest to change is a mindset, because you can have new tools, you can have the newest technology, but you can use it in the old way. So the mindset is most important here, and this is what change management is dealing with, to change people, to change their mindset. Because as the writer, the George Bernard Shaw said, the progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So again, the most important outcome out of my presentation would be that you know that change is about people, about their mindset, about their approach, because without that it's very, very hard to change. And I have some statistic and observation to prove it actually. So what is this is and how this change management looks? There is a company called Prosky. I will put a link later, it is in the presentation, and they came up with this ADKAR approach. So awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So there are steps to deal with steps actually within the change management process I will show later. So as you may notice here, the first 3 steps is actually enabling. So not doing change, only preparing for that and enabling change to happen. So we have awareness, when we have to know what's working in our company, what's not working, what are our options, communicate that we need to change something, focus what are the reasons to change, why we even need that. So have this awareness and have the common awareness why we are doing it, not because everyone is moving to cloud, but we have to have our own reasons. Then there is desire. So people have to want to have this change by building the momentum, by identifying and mitigating the risk and addressing all the fears that people have about this change. Then we are going to knowledge when we prepare. So still the third step, and it is still preparing for the change. When we learning the new skill that will be required after the change, we are trying to think as a team, learn, share information, set targets. So preparing how we can manage this change. And then we are going to the engagement zone when we start with the actions. So the governance framework, the training basics, so training people, starting small, of course, like with everything, and adjusting the process, because it's always, you can have frameworks and some guidance how to do something, but you always have to adjust it to your environment, because you may go for a conference like that and hear about this best approach ever, but it was working for the certain company for the center setup, and it may not work for you. So we are doing the change. We are enabling the ability to do the change, teaching people, and what's very much important and often forgotten is reinforcement. When we introduce to change, we have to verify if it's really work. We have to learn from the mistakes, have some retrospective and lessons learned out of the process of this change. We have to engage the Scrum coach for the retrospective, and we have to have feedback from people. We have to know if this really is working, our approach, or it is not working. And this ADKAR approach can be involved in this change management process. So as you can see, there are steps. Those steps that I showed previously were the steps that are inside the steps of change management process. So as you can see, every step here have this ADKAR approach inside. So at every step, we have to make sure that there is awareness, there is desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And what are the steps of the change management process? It's preparing for the change. So we have to have this project triangle. I will describe it in a moment. We have to do the assessments, organizational and characteristic, know what we are going to change, know what we are going to do. Then when managing, we are preparing the plan for a change. We are communicating that there will be change, and we are coaching people how to change. And to deal with that, we have change managers. And as I already mentioned, reinforcement. So very, very important step, which is to get the feedback for the employees, to have corrective plan if there were some issues, some challenges, and of course celebration. I work on the Scandinavian company, so celebration at our place is very important. So for those who know, fika is very important. So we have to celebrate. We have to feel that the change brings something to us, that we could influence, that we can have our feedback, and that we have some plan how to adjust it for the further and future processes. So how to even start with such a process? Because as you see, there is a lot of steps inside the steps, but everything that is described over the internet, so you can have the guidelines for that. But what you can do for the beginning is the project change triangle mentioned here. What is it? The project change triangle are the three pillars that you need to have a success in your project, in your project, which is to change. You have to have the leadership, the sponsorship that will provide the guidance and governance for everything. The project management, which will give the structure of technical side, and change management, because as I said, this is for the people side of the change. And all those three are important within your project. If you are changing anything, and I think any project is changing something, whether it is legacy application, introducing something new, it will be change, and we need the change management inside it. So how to assess if we have all those angles, all those pillars and foundations for the triangle, or three of them? There is an assessment. As you can see, it's only 30 questions, so it's 10 questions per pillar, per every of those areas here in the triangle. So it's 30 questions, not that much. You can do it on a very short meeting, and then you are just putting a point if it's inadequate, adequate, or exceptional. So also no big responses, no essays on that. And based on that, you are assessing using this table. So if some area have over 25%, is a strength. It's something you can rely on. It's well introduced, well set within your project. If there is over 20 but below 25, there is risk or alert. Something can go wrong, something may have to be improved in this area, and those questions actually can guide you what is the way to improve, what should be improved within your project for this area not to be a risk. And if it's under 20, this factor may be in jeopardy. You have to look closer to it, prioritize this area and work on that to have the success within your project. And based on this triangle, you can start with planning your change, with planning to managing your change. So again, these steps, you have project change triangle, so you can do the assessment and go to the further steps. But as I said, and as you can see, it's kind of complicated and there is a lot of steps, a lot of people should be involved here, especially the trained change manager. And as I was working on this project, this huge project, we had those resources. We had people, we had time for preparation, for doing all of that. But in the first very small assignment after that, when I wanted to go and try to do it in the same way, we didn't have resources. So do we have something simpler? Is there a simpler way to manage the change? Maybe knowing the guidance, knowing what was in this change management approach, but applying it in very simpler way, in very, I would say, reduced, trimmed one. So we have something like this. And this is actually this cycle, this very short and simple cycle to plan, do, check, and act on the things you are doing. And this guy, Deming, introduced it. And what are the steps? So it's kind of similar to the change process, but it's much easier and much more adjustable to your needs when you just plan. So identifying your problems, what is the issue, what you should do, what you want to change, what should be improved, right? So you can just put it as a list on the Word or Notepad or whatever, just list the things that you would like to improve, for example. Then you have to test potential solutions, so like prototyping your solutions. Try first one, the small one, another one, maybe someone will come up after first approach, someone will come up with another one. So try to do it, then study the results. See, maybe you had few small projects, everyone tried different approach. So then check the results, see the metrics for that. See if their approach was correct, or you needed something improvements, or it wasn't working at all. So check what you did. And of course, then if you know what was the best, then implement the best solutions. And again, plan how to implement the best solution. Try to do it, check the results, and act again, because it's a circle. As Japanese culture approach is, you can trying to came to perfection, but you can aim for the perfection, but you will never gain the perfection. So here we can always improve, but we never be ideal, right? So this is why we can have this change management, this ADKAR, and this whole process in mind, but we can use it in the smaller, in the simpler process, which is this Deming cycle. We can, for example, in the planning, we can start with using this project triangle to assess our issues, and then we can act on them. So I talk about this huge project and what was the outcome out of it, what was exactly there. Maybe you can imagine that it was like on this picture, that everybody was having fun and change manager is there in the background doing stuff. But as it was previously, it has to be team effort. everyone has to do their part. Manager has to allow us, we have to do the change, and we have to change the mindset. So for this project, actually this project is still in the going, because it's a huge one. I was there only at the beginning, but I saw the outcomes. I saw that there was much easier to introduce change with this change management approach. We still started with doing the campaign, so gaining awareness and having short movies, introducing in the newsletter what will be the advantage of this change. How can you use it? There was time assigned for people to have these small trainings. They had the demo version to play with that, and allowing this to be there, not just saying from today you are using this, but having this change management process. I really saw that it is working. It's maybe it's not perfect. Of course, it's not perfect, but it was working. So since it was working, I was trying to uh, introduce it to another project, because as you see, I talked about a lot about change, but not that much about testing. So let's consider the following questions. Does some testing change a lot? So I think yes, because as you may know, working in IT is constant change, because you have to learn every time. You have to go to the conferences, because the trends, the tools, the techniques, everything is changing. So to catch up with it, you have to follow, you have to do the change, you have to undergo the change. So yeah, testing is something that is changing very often. So what are the most common changes if it comes to testing? For sure, the tools. When I was starting testing like 10, let's say, years ago, most of the tools I had to code myself, because they were just not available or was only paid. For now, we have a lot of open source tools we can use every time, or a lot of web-based. So yeah, the tools are changing. Also, when you take a look at agendas of conferences, for example, 5 years ago, the topics for us now would be just like it's past ages. The techniques, the approaches, they are changing very fast. We have BDD, which David was describing today, for example. BDD was there a few years ago, but will we have BDD actually in 5 years? Maybe we'll have something different. We had waterfall, we have agile, now we have agile. Waterfall also, of course, but the approaches are changing, right? So as a test manager, especially how to handle this change, how to set mindset of our teams to even be joyful and happy for the change. How can we work with that? Using the change management approach. So not changing at once, but using the process for a change. So as I said, I work as an internal consultant, something like R&D in my company, and I tried to look for some issues that I can solve to improve testing at my company, and do testers make testers' life a bit easier. So we did. My team did the because I knew it is an issue, so we did a survey. Which test management tool is used in your project? Very simple question, but not the simplest answer. As you may see, this was done over a few months. We had 358 teams that answered, because it's international company and we were sending emails with that. So that much of teams answered. And what you can see, okay, some people like 90% are using TFS or Azure, since Azure DevOps is like now replacing the TFS. Some people are using Jira X-Ray, so also the kind of good. But actually 36% of people used Excel. I know it can be useful, but Excel is not a proper test management tool. For example, if it comes to the traceability, it's not automated. You have to do it manually. So it can be useful, but I would not recommend to use Excel as a test management tool, as it's not test management tool. And what saddens me most, 22% of those teams didn't use any of the test management team, although they had testers. They had testers, they were doing testing, but they had none of those tools. So we asked those people who had Excel or none, why they are not using those tools, because the licenses for those tools are there. It's not much of a cost. There is a support for it. There are trainings for that. So it should be obvious that they can use it. So the most common answer was not enough time, of course, to learn to see it. So maybe we could try to show them that they will have more time when introducing the tool. Of course, also saying that there is not enough skill in the team to use that tool. Although when I asked the following question, but did you even try it to use that tool? Very often the answer was no. Another answer was that business will not understand it, as those were especially people using Excel, because they were sharing test plans and test cases with the business or with the client. And they said that they are not technical, they will not understand the tool. And it was always like that. It was legacy, so why I have to change it? Or do I really have to use any tool? I'm good like that. So they had their own reasons. So my job was to change their mindset and show them their reasons are not reasonable, let's say, and are not really applicable. But we wanted, as you can see, 58% of teams were using Excel or no test tool management, and the ultimate goal was to have over 90% using some kind of appointed tool. But then the obstacle, if you was hearing me closely and clearly 2 slides ago, I told you that this survey was done on the 358 teams. So changing the mindset of 358 teams, time consuming. Probably I will be still making a plans for that even. So what is the solution? How can we approach that? Of course, as it was already mentioned, so start small, right? Do the small changes. Like here we can even come back to the very beginnings and very foundation. So ISTQB foundation certificate, and when you are learning there about the introducing test automation or any tool in your project, then it is set to start small, to start with the pilotage, we start with the demo, not with all at once. And it's kind of obvious, but it's very, very helpful by doing something huge to do it step by step. So we took only the few teams that didn't have deadlines like next week, that had a bit of time. They had already a bit of mindset that wanted to change but needed some guidance. So we started easy with them. We were using actually change management process of our own. So we took the ADKAR, we took the Prosky, other things, and Deming cycle, mixed it, adjusted to our needs, and then try this first solution. We tried with these few teams. We then in the reinforcement, so very important change of part of the change. In the reinforcement, we ask for the feedback, we ask for the metrics, we ask for the outcome. So then when going to another teams that weren't that much convinced to the change, we had the proof, we had the outcome, that we had the metrics that they're saving time right now. We have the feedback that it is much easier to work on some things. We had the feedback that business, so the user, know how to use those tools in the proper approach. So we had this starting point from those teams that already had a bit mindset to set the mindset of the new teams. And of course, the outcome, I would like to see this outcome, so everybody is happy and we have this over 90% of the teams using the proper tools. It's not, but it will take time. Change always take time, and we have to remember we cannot change at once. We have to have this process. But for now, the numbers, we didn't do the survey yet, but the numbers are changing. More and more people is not that we have to go to people and tell them now we will change your test management tool, but it went viral, you may say, and more people is asking for the guidance how to start using this test management tool. So I would say it is kind of success from my side. Other than changing something or handling the project where we can adapt, where we can use this change management approach, or even the Deming cycle, of course, when we are learning something, we want to change, we want to learn more, we can try doing this process. Something that should be improved in our personal life, in our business, or even our career. We can use this change management approach in our career, how to change, how to advance in our career. So I will be slowly finishing. Next steps, what you can do if you want to learn more about it. First, you can join me on the Ask Me Anything session, or ask something on the Slido. I will be answering in a minute for that. If you want to read something, you can just copy this QR code or go for the link, read more about the ADKAR, about the Deming cycle, and just try to change. Because the key takeaways, what I would like you to remember from this presentation, most importantly, it's all about the people. You won't change when something when the mindset is not changed. It's something you have to carry in mind all the time when changing something. That those things that I described and more of them, like there is, for example, TMMI, so the maturity model for improving testing, right? There is TPI Next also for improving testing, and you can go strictly by them, but also like with the change management, you can use it as a framework, and I found it more successful. It was just better to adapt any framework, any approach to your needs, not just to take it as it is. And most importantly, since you are on the conference, so probably you will be going with just gospel to your company. Don't be afraid of the change, and if you will have the mindset, you can pass it to other people. So a small call to action from my side. So take small change. It can be personal, professional, small change, and read about those things I just described and try to use it to apply this change in your life. And if it will be successful or not, you can write me. I will be very grateful about your success and unsuccessful stories. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a Twitter with my husband, actually, because he is also a presenter and speaker at the conferences, and here's my mail. So if you would like to contact me later, of course you can. I will not just go to Slido if there are more. So the first question, which test management tool you like the most? Do you know what's the answer from the tester? Always, it depends for your needs. But for now, my favorite is actually the Azure DevOps. I don't like the name because Azure is something different, DevOps, but the tool that replaced the TFS, it has many options, many connections, and I like it a lot. And it's kind of easy to use. So for now, that's my favorite. Another question, which testing management tool would you recommend for smaller company which you have good visual representation? For the smaller company, actually, I will recommend Jira. because for small teams you can have it for free or not that much. They have different approaches. So Jira is good, but if you want test within it, of course you have to have the addition, so it can be different. The X-ray is the most popular at my company, but you can use also, and X-ray have these great reports actually. The people, the person who would like to show more about the visual representations in Jira, you can write me an email and I will show you a bit. But there is also Zephyr for the test management purposes, and there is TestLink. I think TestFlow, which is the addition for Jira. Also, so for small, I will recommend Jira. Is it possible to do automated tests for something that changes constantly? It is, but it's not easy. It's I'm not the expert in the automation, but actually there are ways to adjust, for example, and very important, a high level test and some kind of maybe keyword driven, not exactly the click here and click here, but do something like, or behavior driven. So something that it was described today. So behavior driven development. After I know you will get the presentations, so you can see the presentation from David Pacha, and he was talking about BDD, and I think that can be applied to automate things that change constantly. Are there any more questions? No, I don't have any more questions here. Thank you very much. It was kind of strange to talk to the camera, but I hope there were some people because I got the questions. So have a great rest of the conference. If someone would like to, please join me in the Ask Me Anything corner session, and have a nice day.